The Unexpected King, Christmas according to Isaiah. Hello and welcome. As Christmas approaches, our hearts and homes fill with a special kind of warmth. We decorate trees, wrap presents, and plan feasts. But have you ever wondered what Christmas was like before the very first Christmas? Imagine a world waiting, a world filled with a deep, quiet longing for something more, for a promise to be fulfilled. This is the story of Christmas as seen through the eyes of the prophet Isaiah, hundreds of years before the star ever appeared over Bethlehem. Our story begins not in a cozy living room, but in a time of great turmoil and uncertainty for the people of Judah. They were living under the shadow of powerful, aggressive empires. Fear was a constant companion. It was in this atmosphere of darkness that a voice of hope, the voice of Isaiah, rang out. He spoke of a future that seemed almost impossible to believe. Isaiah painted a picture, not with a brush, but with words that would echo through centuries. He declared, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." Imagine hearing those words when all you see is struggle. It wasn't just a flicker of hope. It was a promise of a brilliant, transformative light that would shatter the darkness completely. This wasn't just about political freedom. It was about a spiritual dawn, a new beginning for humanity. Then Isaiah got more specific. This great light wasn't an event. It was a person. He said, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders." This is one of the most famous prophecies about Jesus, and we hear it every Christmas. But let's pause and think about what it meant to the people then. A child? A baby as the source of salvation? In a world that valued military might and political power, the idea of a baby changing everything was revolutionary. And this wouldn't be just any child. Isaiah gave him a series of incredible titles, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Let's unpack these names. Wonderful Counselor, not just a wise advisor, but a divine guide who understands our deepest struggles. Mighty God, this wasn't just a messenger from God. This was God himself, stepping into our world in human form. Everlasting Father, a protector with a love that never ends, a father to the fatherless. And Prince of Peace, the one who would bring not just a temporary truce, but a deep, lasting peace, a shalom, between God and humanity, and between people. These names were a profound statement. In a world ruled by kings who were often corrupt and self-serving, Isaiah was describing a new kind of ruler. A king whose government wouldn't be built on oppression, but on justice and righteousness. A king whose reign would have no end. He promised, "Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever." This was a hope that transcended their immediate circumstances. It was a promise of eternal security and perfect justice. But Isaiah's prophecy didn't stop there. He also gave a hint about the child's origins, which was just as startling. He wrote, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel." The name Emmanuel is key. It means God with us. This wasn't a distant God who set the world in motion and then stepped back. This was a promise of God's intimate, personal presence. God choosing to be with his people, to walk among them, to share in their human experience. This is the heart of the Christmas story, God's radical decision to close the distance between heaven and earth. Isaiah continued to paint a picture of this coming king's character. And it was a portrait that defied all earthly expectations of power and royalty. He described him not as a conquering warrior but as a humble servant. He wrote, "He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground." He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. This is shocking. The long-awaited Messiah, the mighty God, wouldn't come with the splendor and charisma of an earthly king. He would be ordinary, unimpressive, even. He would be despised and rejected, a man of suffering, familiar with pain. Why would God choose to come this way? Because he came not to be served, but to serve. He came to identify with the lowest and the lost, to understand our suffering by experiencing it himself. Isaiah's prophecy foretells the cross long before it happens, saying, "But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." The Prince of Peace would bring peace through his own suffering. The mighty God would show his strength through vulnerability. So, picture yourself back in ancient Judah, hearing these words. They are confusing, paradoxical, yet deeply compelling. a king who is a baby, a God who is a servant, a ruler who saves through suffering. This is the unexpected story of Christmas that Isaiah tells. It's a story that turns our ideas of power, greatness, and salvation completely upside down. It's not about tinsel and lights. It's about a light coming into profound darkness. It's not about getting what we want. It's about receiving the gift we desperately need, the gift of God Himself. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell. And then, one silent night in the small town of Bethlehem, Isaiah's words sprang to life. A young virgin named Mary gave birth to a son. Shepherds, the outcasts of society, were the first to hear the news from an army of angels, proclaiming peace on earth. They found the baby just as the prophet had foretold, a tender shoot, a root out of dry ground, lying in a humble manger. The wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, had arrived. Emmanuel, God was with us. So what is the lesson for us today, in our own busy, often chaotic lives? The story of Christmas, according to Isaiah, teaches us that God's plans are often not what we expect. We look for strength and power, success and influence. God shows His strength in humility, service, and sacrifice. We look for solutions in grand gestures and loud pronouncements. God brings the ultimate solution in the quiet cry of a newborn baby. Isaiah reminds us that true hope isn't found in our circumstances getting better, but in the unwavering presence of God with us, even in the midst of our struggles. The light He promised isn't a magic wand that makes all our problems disappear. It's a presence that walks with us through the darkness, a wonderful Counselor who guides us, and a Prince of Peace who calms our anxious hearts. The message is that no matter how dark your world feels, a great light has dawned. You are not alone. God has stepped into your story. This Christmas, as you gather with loved ones, look at the lights on your tree and remember the great light that Isaiah prophesied. When you see a nativity scene, think of the humble king who had no majesty to attract us to Him, yet holds the universe together. And when you hear the name Emmanuel, remember its beautiful promise. God is with us. The appeal of this story is an invitation. An invitation to look beyond the wrapping paper and the festive meals to see the true gift of Christmas. It's an invitation to welcome the unexpected King into your life. To allow the Prince of Peace to reign in your heart. To trust the wonderful Counselor with your worries. To know the love of the everlasting Father. The promise Isaiah made so long ago was fulfilled in Jesus, and that promise is still for you today. He came to bring light to your darkness, peace to your turmoil, and hope to your heart. If you've never considered this story before, or if it feels distant, I encourage you to simply talk to this King. You don't need fancy words. Just tell Him you want to know the peace and light He offers. Isaiah's prophecy is not just a historical account. It is a living invitation into a relationship with the God who came to be with us. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time to discover the roots of Christmas. May you experience the profound wonder and deep peace of Emmanuel, God with us, this holiday season. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that explore the depth of faith. Merry Christmas.